Not much, just here.
Good. I always forget how to do this through the chat room. Discord is like very non-intuitive to me.
I mean, I sent you a picture.
I know you sent me a picture, but it's how to get to that picture that I always forget. I always forget how to get there. This is not you fail to instruct me how to do it. This is a me thing. I just can't. I just couldn't. No matter how many times I'm in Discord, I always forget to go into the chat room first and the raise your hand portion. Whatever. This can't possibly be compelling radio to anyone who's listening. I just turned 54 2 days ago, so everyone, you can understand that basically your grandmother is on right now.
Grandma Lippman.
There you go. I've got yet another nickname.
It's like, Jeff, click on the picture. What? The picture. The picture?
What picture? A picture of you when you were a baby? Which one? The one in the tub or the one in the pool? Is a cute one with your cousin?
The picture that is literally of you and me and everyone else. What?
That's you and me?
I don't want to pay for anything.
People? There's a new person in there. Who's the new person? Is that Oscar?
No, Jeff. That's RJ. He's a black man. He's not a Asian woman.
I know who RJ is. The one next to RJ.
Who are you talking about?
One under RJ.
Oh, you mean Monty?
The one next to Monty. Is Monty still around?
Yeah, he's still around. We just did a show yesterday.
I see him on Twitter.
Yeah, he's on Twitter. He's on Twitter a lot. Well, now we have a show now. It's on his thing. It's a Saturday morning show.
It's like Saturday morning cartoons. Cartoons.
Hey, I need to copyright that.
Well, trademark, but okay.
I need to trademark that, and then that and Mountain Drew. That's Anna's suggestion.
Oh, that's a good one, Mountain Drew. You can do that with your show with Mish, because he's like a mountain.
I think Mish has too many shows already.
Well, I don't know. I get the feeling that he's slowly trying to turn Wrestling Soup into a 24/7 channel, and need more shows for that. Now, he doesn't need to be on them all, but, maybe maybe one with you. They mentioned your name every single goddamn show. You're more over than anyone else. I mean, Capital can't resist an opportunity to put your name into anything.
I mean, I don't think I'm over, but I appreciate when they do mention me.
They constantly mention you. I'm telling you, there's a lot of love there for you. Not so much for me.
I mean, I appreciate the love. Well, by the way, happy birthday, Mish.
Happy birthday, Mish. My birthday 2 days ago. He's like 2 weeks ago.
Well, technically 2 days, but yeah. Happy birthday to you. Your birthday was on Friday, so happy birthday again.
His birthday is the same as mine?
Well, no, your birthday was on a Friday.
Right. When was his?
Today.
Oh, it's his birthday today? All right. Happy birthday, Mish.
Hey, I'm trying to be nice.
Back on that.
Hey, I'm trying to be nice to you, okay?
How old is he?
I don't know. Probably like he's. I assume he's immortal.
So 72,000.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Oh, he's like what, 41, 42, something like that.
I think he was born in 77, so probably 45.
Okay, 45. I'm still much older.
Are you older than Castle, or the same age?
Castle is 5 months older than me.
Ah, okay.
So he's the old man for like 5 months, and then I catch up.
And I'm just the youngin'.
Well, this is a young man game.
And you've managed to come in and leave an impact.
Well, I mean, it's not like I've been successful at it. I'm just on, I'm
Nah,
on
you're
the air a
successful.
lot.
Oh, shut up. You're successful. Stop.
Really? I mean, come on. I was expecting to have 50,000 listens by now. Per show.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have 5 listeners or 50,000 listeners. You just have people listening to the show. That's what matters.
There's something to that. But there's something to, listen, if this was a TV network, I'd be canceled.
Well, this isn't. So, I mean, just I do this for fun. I don't care. Like I don't even have 1,000 followers on Twitter. Like I don't even care about that. Like RJ has over 1,000 followers. Monty has over 1,000 followers. Like I don't really care.
I don't think I do either.
Like it
I'm
doesn't.
not sure, mate.
You know.
I have 680, something like that.
Like Julian told me that a long time ago, where I was on a show on Julian Cannon, where he said, "It doesn't matter if I have 6 listeners or 60 or 600. What matters is I have people listening."
Yeah, that's true. But the people who say that are always the ones who have 10 to 20,000 downloads a show or whatever. So, I mean, no, I also do. Well, I do Garden of Doom for me. Mm-hmm. I do Garden Views partially for me. One wrestling podcast I do, would be enough for me to get to scratch that itch. But I do a lot. I do a lot of shows on the PWC. Not always, and it's not like it's terrible or anything, but it was never really supposed to be that way because there were a bunch of people that were on it, but people have sort of dropped off for various reasons. And so someone had to pick up the slack, so it's basically me and Jimmy T on every show. And while that's fine, and there may be advantages to it, that it was never my intention to be on one network talking wrestling 5 times a week, let alone my own show, and then occasionally guesting on other people's shows also. It gets exhausting talking about wrestling all the time and basically saying the same thing 2 or 3 times a week. It's inevitably wrestling, as you know, is stuff happens every single day, and there's news every day, and sometimes it's big, and sometimes small things feel big, and whatever. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. But there are people who like to do that. They like to talk to their audience every single day. Don Tony does that. I think Jason does that now. I think JD from New York does it. I'm not really sure, but a lot of people they have shows every day. That was never really my vision. It's a little exhausting at times.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. Honestly, it's just I like to. This week has probably been the busiest for me because the Wednesday show. I did a show on Friday with RJ for our Patreon. I did 2 shows yesterday. The morning with Monty, and then one at night, the Q&A with Justin, and then today. So this is.
I know. I listened to your regular show. Then I listened to. I guess it was Monty, where it was. We've got much to discuss. I sort of lost it a little bit. I sort of lost the thread a little bit during the Black Adam talk because I hadn't seen it. And talk about a film that's dropped off. I'm not really surprised. But week 1, everyone was talking about. By week 2, nobody was talking about it.
To be fair, the big thing of the film was just Henry coming back, and then Wakanda Forever came in, and it's just like Black Adam who?
Wait. Henry, who are you on the first name? Henry Cavill?
Henry Cavill. There you go.
He was in the movie?
Well, you haven't seen it yet.
But don't worry, I'll see it when it comes out free on HBO. Don't worry about spoilers with me. I don't care about a spoiler for a DC movie. DC to me is complete rubbish. So
then I'll just spoil it for you. So the post-credit scene is Black Adam's on his throne, and then Amanda Waller.
I heard your show yesterday. Yeah, I heard the Monty show, but I actually just tell the audience for the people who didn't hear the Patreon show yet.
So the post-credit scene is Black Adam is sitting on his throne. And then all of a sudden you see a drone come in, and it's Amanda Waller, it's Viola Davis, saying, hey, You got my attention now, so I'm just letting you know.
This is just don't say actor names. Say character names. I don't know who these fucking actors are.
What? Everyone knows Viola. Whatever. Anyways, you're pissing me off. Anyways, I'll just say it anyway. Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller comes in, says, "You got my attention. Just make sure you don't exit your area. If you exit your homeland, we're gonna send people after you." And Black Adam says, "Send them all. Like nobody on this earth can stop me." And then Amanda Waller says, "I can call in some favors from people that aren't from Earth that can stop you." And Black Adam says, "Send them all." And he destroys the drone, and all of a sudden you see a whoosh come in. And you just hear a voice saying, "It's been a while since people have been this nervous." And you see Henry come in with the curl, with the suit. And he just says, "Black Adam, we should talk."
So Superman. All right, very good.
It's a nice scene. So, and then, Wakanda Forever came out. And, of course, I saw that. Great movie.
Yeah, of course you do. I'm hearing that it's... Okay, this is basically what I'm hearing. It's pretty good, which, because of all the goodwill equity that Marvel has and Black Panther has, and because of all the social reasons that people are maybe overly invested in it, and because of the death of the star, which has people overly invested in it, I'm going to take pretty good as it wasn't that good.
Ye of little faith. I mean, it was a good movie. It probably could have been shorter because it's like I think 2 hours and 41 minutes. But it was a good movie. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I want to see it again. It's a lot. I'm just letting you know it's a lot to take in. And from beginning, middle to end, it's Mish. I see Mish. Hey, what's up, Mish? It's like 2 hours and 41 minutes, I believe. It's like the second longest movie that they've done. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's very emotional.
You enjoy everything, so I mean, we need to hear. Like I read John Draper's review. It's like it's long. I liked it. It was pretty good. Which I mean, Draper also likes more things than I do. I mean, like I take a lot of their horror recommendations, but I'm slowing down because there's a lot of things they just love. When I say I mean sort of like the Break the Apocalypse wing of the museum. It's a lot of stuff they love. I either think it's meh or I don't like it at all. Now some of it I love, but I mean that's. So I really can't go by your recommendations or his recommendations. If he said something was awesome, I'm going to be more interested, but I need to hear from other people. Now, if he says something was awful, and if you say something is awful, then I know it's really awful. Like when you said Morbius was awful, then I knew there was just no point whatsoever.
So you basically just contradicted yourself when you said I like everything.
You liked everything except Morbius.
No, there's been some movies I didn't like.
Name others.
The Northman. The Northman wasn't good.
You're right, it wasn't.
I didn't like Smile as much as I thought I would.
Didn't see it, but I mean, come on, it's just a gimmick movie.
It's a horror movie. I thought I was going to like it a lot more. I didn't think Black Adam was perfect. I said I enjoyed it. It's a fun popcorn movie, but didn't say it was perfect. What are some other movies I reviewed? Halloween Ends was ass. Hellraiser was ass.
The reboot. You're not talking about the original.
The original wasn't that big of a fan of, but the reboot was ass.
The original was amazing. Didn't see the reboot.
Let's see. Yeah, we didn't like The Northman. Orphan Kills, I didn't think it was all that great. I thought it had an interesting twist, but it wasn't enough to hook me. So, I don't like it.
What was the last movie you just said?
What was that?
What was the last movie you just said?
Orphan Kills.
Oh, Orphan Kills.
But
yeah, I saw Orphan. Orphan was okay. I mean, it was good.
The original Orphan was good, but
I'm talking about the original Orphan.
Yeah, the prequel was just meh.
It's okay. I mean, if you saw the Omen 4, you basically already saw Orphan. We'll throw in a little bit with the Kirsten Dunst version of the vampire, an interview with a vampire, and you've got Orphan Kills.
I mean, again, I don't like everything. I mean, I just there's things I like, and if I don't like anything, I'm just not going to talk about it. So
Anybody who's new to hear me, I am prone to hyperbole. I know that Drew doesn't like everything. He just likes he's overwhelmingly positive or non-discriminating in his media, which is not an insult. It's better in life to enjoy more things than not. It's just I am highly picky in my media, except when I'm strangely not. Like, for example, Moonfall. Moonfall was a terrible movie. Nobody liked it, but I did, because it's exactly the kind of stupid schlock I like.
I mean, there's movies that are just so bad that they're good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's just like, for me, it's just like, if a movie is just really emotionally impactful, I can negate some, like, plot holes in the movie. But,
yeah, you cry too much.
Shut up. Hey, if I wasn't crying in this movie, 1,000 other people were crying. So don't even get on me for crying in this movie.
Bunch of wusses.
Oh, you're a wuss. Anyways,
are you gonna try and make me cry?
I'm gonna make you cry.
Try harder.
Mish, you want to jump? Mish, you want to jump on?
It's his birthday. Give him a day off. Have him jump on. Let's see what he's got going on.
Yeah, he said you guys got room. I don't know if he meant that as a joke or if he really wants to jump on. Hey, Mish.
What's going on, boys?
Hey, happy birthday, Mish.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday. Slick magic of big girl lovin'.
That's right.
What's that?
Slick magic.
Where'd you get that from?
Oh, that was one of Krauser's prostitutes.
Sounds about right.
Yes.
Okay.
When he was looking for prostitutes, one of the girls that we found, this was her profile, that you can't handle the slick magic of big girl lovin'. And so we sent her a couple of emails trying to get her and Krauser together. So, fun times.
So
those Chicago prostitutes are the best prostitutes, let me tell you.
I'm sure that there are. It's a very service-oriented, big-money city. I mean, if he was willing to spend $2,000 for a night, I'm sure he could get some good luck.
But he was... All right, to preface that, when he was going crazy with the girls that he was looking for, he was also on the Golden Mile, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever been to the Mag Mile, the Magnificent Mile, Golden Mile, whatever you want to call it here in Chicago.
Are you talking about Michigan Avenue, or are you talking about the Lake Shore?
Yeah, of course. Michigan Avenue.
I was there. I was there every year. I was in Chicago for a conference at I think it's the Hilton, the Business Hilton, right next to the John Hancock building.
Oh, that's where I was for Jerry Springer.
Yeah, so I was right there next to. I mean, Bulgari was literally the corner store at the base of the building,
right?
And then Rush is right down.
You were right next to Harpo Studios too. That's where Oprah films, right there.
Absolutely, and you could walk one way and see some of the luxury stores, but if you took a left, you go in towards the river, all the way up Michigan Avenue, past the Waterloo and malls and Ferragamo and Boss and Gucci and that.
I worked at the Borders right there, right across from the Water Tower, and right next to the FAO Schwartz, where they filmed Big, among a bunch of other movies too. So.
Yeah, I've been to the Prada up there. I've been to the Hermes.
Signature Room? You ever eaten at the Signature Room?
No, but I ate at Spago.
Okay, fair enough.
One of the chefs who was like the runner-up on Top Chef was there, so I got a photo with her. Yeah.
I didn't know you were that well-versed in Chicago, Jeff.
I used to go to Chicago every year, at least once, for the Commercial Law League of America. That's where the international convention was every year. So I was there every year for 15 years, but also for the Legal Shield and prepaid legal conferences. It was in Chicago a couple times. And then I've been, just a couple times on my own. I mean, and
you ever do, is it a vacation or is it always like a business?
I conference as a verb, so my business conferences are vacations. And it's hard to believe it. I was very well liked, and I was on lots of committees and on the board of governors and shit. So, all the meals were free, all the meals were great. They were at. I once bet this guy John Guarini at some Italian restaurants downstairs, and met this fabulous Persian family to bring Drew into this thing. And, like, I don't know, probably hitting on the guy's daughters, and he didn't seem to mind, and he's buying us drinks.
Yeah, we all know how Drew likes to hit on guys' daughters. Come on now.
No, well, this was
I won't say that I do, but I won't say that I don't.
Well, they were hot, but it was weird that their parents were right there and didn't seem offended by it at all. Anyway, so I bet with this guy, John Guarini, he's like, everyone's going to love my California wine. I said, everyone's going to love the wine I pick. He goes, all right, well, let's bet. What's the bet? I said, the bet is the loser, has to pay the table bill. He's like, you're on. And so he ordered some California wine that tastes like dirt and mushrooms, like all California wines do, the fancy ones. And I ordered a terrific, delicious Amarone. And there were 12 people at the table, and it was 11-1 in my favor. And then we asked the waiter. He's like, these people don't know anything about wine. And then, well, what about the waiter? He's like, I like the Amarone better. So it was 12-1, and Guarini had to pay for everything.
Nice.
It was very nice.
You're a bit fancy. You can definitely be a little bit fancy. Sometimes I forget that Jeff comes from a place where you kind of have that level of business etiquette, because, I mean, I'm a steak and potatoes kind of guy. You know what I mean? When it comes to wine pairings and stuff, I'm clueless, Jeff. I have no fucking clue which red wine goes with what type of fish or what type of meats and stuff like that. Like, there's a reason why, if you go to those places, you just ask the waiter for what's best.
Here's the thing. First of all, for wine, you should drink what you like. I mean, you shouldn't drink just because of the pairings. That's
no, that's not the point. I thought the whole point of the pairing was that when you drink that type of wine, especially with whatever meal that you have, it's supposed to accentuate the meal and actually make the flavors of, like, the meat come out and stand out much better. That's why you can't sit there and pair a steak with, like, a white Zinfandel,
Oh, it's true. There is truth to that. However, if you're not someone that it actually does enhance the flavors for you and you like another wine, I mean, the pairings is what they want you to believe. Yeah. But you drinking what you actually like, like there's people that are rich enough to buy the brands that you've never even heard of.
Right.
There's people who say you want, if you're a woman, you want the Chanel bag because everyone knows what it is. And then there's these other bags like Birkins or something that's nobody's heard of, or like the shoes for men, Aldens. Nobody's heard of them. You've heard of them.
But when you say drink whatever you like, that's a blue collar tactic. I mean, at the end of the day, if you ask me what I'd like to drink with my steak, I'll take a couple of shots of Jaeger. And I'm sure that there would be chefs that would look at me like I'm the fucking Antichrist on fire for even saying such a thing,
Actually, they wouldn't. They would be mad at you if you ordered your steak well done or you've asked for A1.
True.
If you're ordering alcohol, that's where all the profit comes from. So they'll be like, "Drink on, playa."
Playa.
Listen, I can be fancy with steak and potatoes, but I
don't remember the last time a chef called me playa, but I want to go to one of these places that Jeff goes to here in Chicago.
We went to a restaurant. This was not in Chicago, but it was with the same crew. I think it was in Las Vegas, and it was maybe one of Wolfgang Puck's restaurants. And the same guy, John Guarini. By the way, I have another Chicago story about him. Because John Guarini, for years, we knew he was divorced. We knew that his wife was his ex-wife was like a drug addict, and Guarini got custody of his two girls. And that's really all we knew, and he always, he was the most locker room jokey guy of them all. And at some point on Facebook, he came out that he was gay, and nobody cared. I mean, it was all cool, but he was still making like boob jokes and things like that. So it was the weirdest thing. Anyway, so I at the time I was married, so I took him with me to go to, it was either Dior or Chanel to help me pick out a purse for my wife, because that's what you have to do. And he's like, I don't know anything about this. And I'm like, you are the most useless gay man alive. And I actually took him by the scruff of his jacket and the belt of his pants, and I cartoon threw him out of the store. I said, I'll handle this myself. Also, he always wore this ugly yellow tie. So when he was the outgoing chair of his section, the incoming chair, it's tradition to get them a gift. So I got him a nice, beautiful yellow Brioni tie, and he wore it all the time, which made me very happy. Anyway, so back to Chicago. So Guarini, I guess when you're rich and gay, you know lots of rich and gay people, and he knew the head pastry chef dessert chef for all of the Puck restaurants. So he got us the best table. He got us this tasting menu for the desserts. We could all order what we wanted for our meals. And my friend Ken Rozick, who's no longer my friend, or because he ghosted me ever since I became unimportant, he ordered a steak, and then he ordered it well done with blue cheese. And the chef actually came out and said, "The chef will not cook this for you."
Was he actually a Michelin star chef too?
I'm not sure.
I know that they have a weird. So one of my exes was like really big into working with proper food. Right, she worked at different restaurants with different Michelin stars. Like that was her whole thing. And I remember going there and helping them out for a Christmas service, actually, because they were short-staffed and they had a lot more people planned to show up than they expected, which is fine. And I remember, first off, it was the only time I'd ever been in a kitchen with an actual Michelin star chef. I think his restaurant was called Michael. And you couldn't say Michael's or else he'd fucking lose his shit. It had to be Michael. And that's how you had to say it. And he had 2 stars at the time. I don't know if he still does. I mean, we're talking, it's been probably 15 years, if not longer. So I'm not really sure whatever happened. But the first thing you recognize when you go into these restaurants is how insane the back room is. And I don't mean sloppy or anything else like that, but everybody's doing 5 things at once. Like everybody, from the fucking dishwasher to the sauciers to the people that are actually cooking the food. Like every single person is preparing a dish, cooking a dish, getting more dishes ready or getting everything prepped. Like it's just this constant, just this buzzwork, this beehive of just people making and creating dishes and stuff. And the second thing is how serious his reputation was. Like it was to the point that, I mean, even dishwashers and people anybody that had to go out on the floor had to look perfect. Like if there was a smudge on your shirt, go change your shirt. You know what I mean? If you got sauce on your shirt, go change your shirt. Like there was no time to like, oh, well, I'll just, rub a little alcohol or whatever on it and clean it. No, none of that shit. You had to be perfect. Everything had to be set. And I think it was then, and not necessarily the blue cheese and the well-done steak, but on that level, I think somebody asked for something altered. And I remember him in the back screaming at the top of his lungs to the point where I'm like, I'm surprised that the people up front don't hear him. I'm not changing a fucking thing. There's a reason I made it this fucking way, and that's how they'll fucking eat it. Like it's
very Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, yeah, and that's not bullshit. I know a lot of people that think that the whole Gordon Ramsay thing is a work. And it's like, no, these chefs are kind of crazy like that. I mean, it even goes back to, what was his name? Anthony, the one that passed.
Bourdain,
right. Yeah, and he lived that crazy lifestyle inside the kitchen and outside the kitchen. A lot of these chefs really are a little bit nuts when it comes to their food. Because it's not, to them, it's not food. To us, it's food, right? We're getting an amazing meal or whatever. To them, and I hate saying it like this, to them, it's their art. But it is
their art. It is. If you've ever watched Top Chef, and I watched 10 seasons of it before I checked out, because it was sort of the same thing over and over again. I got tired of investing in new characters, just wasn't interested. The way they put things together and the way they conceive things, it is art. I mean, it's not just their imagination; it actually is art. And I realize that, and I'm just like, hey, that's a lot. I mean, a lot of stuff sounds good, but I'm pretty happy with a just good cheeseburger.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, so this episode of the Drew Yari show, or I'm sorry, what's the name from Drew's lips to your ears?
From our lips to your ears.
Okay, there's not a Drew's in there somewhere.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I can.
Oh no! You're more than welcome to be on here.
Yeah, no, stick around if you want. So this Drew gave me. Funny, you don't look Drewish. Drew gave me a homework assignment for this one. Actually, I sort of suggested it because, a lot of the shows, he likes to just talk about what we're watching. But basically, it ends up with me saying what I hate and what he loves. And so I'm like, let's stray from that. Nobody needs to know what I'm watching, and I'm really not watching that much because there's like 9,000 hours of wrestling on a week, so I'm not watching a whole lot of other stuff.
I was.
So I'm like, well, you always do. I said, tell me some monsters or demons, from movies that you like, and let's see if there's anything that I can find on them. So it's almost like a Drew Yari Garden of Doom crossover. But I know Mish likes monsters.
I do.
He's gigantic, so he probably has some blood of the Rephaim in him, and so. So, Drew, why don't you start? Which monster do you want me to start with for you? Because I put some time and effort into this.
All right. I have my list right here. So let's start with the Jinn.
Okay. All right. So the Jinn, sometimes called the genie in the anglicized version, it's a D-J-I-N or two N's. Sometimes there's an I at the end. Sometimes the I indicates that it's feminine. So the Jinn are interesting. And they're probably, when you think of a Jinn, you probably think of Aladdin, or for those of you who watch the MCU, you probably think of Miss Marvel. Neither really is what they're supposed to be. So the Jinn are like humans in that they're not angels. They're below angels. They're not exactly immortal, but they have much longer lifespans. But they're born with the ability to choose whether or not they believe in God or not. So this is taking a very Islamic version of the Jinn. So you can have good and bad Jinn, like witches, but it's really closer to like the Fey folk in Celtic and Scandinavian, Germanic. It's really, they're really more like the will-o'-the-wisp or the original jack-o'-lantern or the sprite. They're basically created from smoke, whereas the will-o'-the-wisp is more from fog or light. Some people say because of sandstorms and the ball lightning that was created in sandstorms from the friction, that's sort of where it comes from. But they're you could call them demons, but they're not from hell. So and think a little bit of the movie Fallen, where there was a demon that was going from body to body. That would be cognate to
Azazel.
Well, that was the name in the movie, and we'll get to Azazel. I know he was on your list. But the Jinn are like that. They can possess a body for good or for evil, but when they possess a human body, it's usually for evil. So they're sort of demonic, but there can be good Jinn as well. So that's the basics on the Jinn. This whole granting of wish things, that's more like the fairy tale version. It's more for like metaphors or parables, sort of like to teach kids a lesson. But they can have supernatural powers from time to time. But they're more preternatural than supernatural.
All right, interesting. And then you brought this up and I brought it up. Azazel, who is
Yes.
the biggest exposure that Azazel's had in media, which you just mentioned, the movie Fallen with Denzel, and the show Supernatural, which I'm assuming those aren't the correct adaptations of the being known as Azazel.
Fallen can be, depending on who you listen to. Supernatural, I watched one episode and checked out. So I don't know what the reference with Supernatural is. All right, so Azazel is actually originally a place, and it's a place where you would bring your donkeys. That was literally the translation of the word in Old Hebrew, where you bring your donkeys or goats. So, some people infer that where you took them to sacrifice, and it grew. But the Azazel that you're speaking of actually comes from the books of Enoch. So, the books of Enoch are a little bit weird. Because everyone assumes that they're really, really old and that they're part of the Bible, and people treat them as if they are, but they're not. In fact, most religions treat them as non-canonical, not non-part of the Bible. Some do. I believe a bunch of the evangelical churches do, and some denominations do, but the Catholic Church, for example, does not.
If I could throw 2 cents in there, which is really weird considering that the Catholic Bible actually has 12 additional books that also aren't part of the Bible that they accept as doctrine.
The Catholic, if you go with all the Gospels, there's over 30 Gospels that weren't accepted in there. Right. Those are called the Gnostic Gospels. But there's also these other books, and there might be others. The Book of Enoch were probably written around 100 BC, so about 2,100 years ago. And they were found in a place called Qumran in Ethiopia. Interestingly enough, to Mish's point, the Eastern Orthodox religions, which Russian, Antioch, Armenian, Bulgarian, Albanian, all Greek Orthodox, a lot of those Orthodox churches, they have 4 more books than the Catholic Church has. I think the Catholic Church has 67 books in their Bible. Eastern Orthodox have 71, and the Ethiopian has more. Ethiopian has like 76 or something like that. And then the Ethiopians and their relationship to Christianity and Judaism is actually really interesting as it's its own story. Anyway, so Judaism, they accept the Book of Enoch not as part of the doctrine, but they accept it and they take it to be proof. It's supportive of God's covenant with the Jewish people. Do not ask me how or why. Don't ask me how. I can tell you the why. The why is because if you actually break down God, and you go to, and the angels and the different, there's like 9 choirs of angels, which are broken into 3 basic ranks of angels with different powers and attributes. You had Enoch, who ascended to godhood, a little bit like Hercules did. Maybe like Jesus did, who knows? You also have Jesus. So you have, the point being is, when you really look at these things, is there really a monotheistic religion? Especially when you have a devil that God apparently can't defeat. So, is there really a monotheistic religion? So what the Talmudic scholars did is they accepted the Book of Enoch, but their view of angels is that they're not immortal. They're not immortal gods. They're not like Osiris or Apollo or and any god you can think of, Thor. They're like robots. They're basically automatons. They have no thoughts of their own. They're basically dogs. God tells them what to do. They're messengers. They're malachim. They're messengers. They do it. They run God's errands, and that's all they are. And so to accept the Book of Enoch's
what the hell? Are you kidding me?
Angels seem to have made choices, and you have, maybe the most famous angel of them all, Satan, who's not the same Satan that we're talking about, Satan, who kept saying to God, let me torment Job, let me test Job for you. And God's like, all right, have it, do whatever you want. And Satan did plenty of things. He was the adversary, the accuser. That's what Satan means. So anyway, back to Azazel. In the Book of Enoch, Azazel is one of the 7 leaders of the Watchers, which is about 200 to 240 angels who came down to Earth to watch and observe the human race. Cue to the Eternals movie, if you like. Cue to the Anunnaki, if you like. I can go on and on with El and things like that. But anyway, so Azazel, in many of the forms, is the leader of the Watchers. He's not always the leader. Sometimes the leader is Lucifer, but he's not named anywhere. Lucifer means the bright one and the morning star, so we're not really sure who Lucifer was necessarily. We know who he's become, but Samael was also considered possibly the end. And by the way, all these names, El, it's like the same as when people convert to Islam. A lot of times they pick -El or El or Bay. El simply means God, the one.
I thought it was in Milton's book where Lucifer was described as being where they really talked about, or I should say he really talked about where Lucifer came from. I forgot exactly which book it was off the top of my head, but I'll look it up.
Paradise Lost.
Yes. That's where I thought Lucifer really came from, the origins, because it talked about his descent into hell and everything else like that too. So
Right.
I didn't think it was part of the Bible at all. I thought it was an artist's interpretation of the Bible, which was Milton.
And it's become morphed in, because you're right, because Lucifer was the morning star, and the morning star is Mercury, and Mercury is attached to Hermes,
Right.
not Hermes, the fancy schmancy house, but Hermes, the messenger of the gods in Greek mythology and in several other pantheons. There's always sort of a messenger god. And, well, what do you have in the Bible? You have Moloch, the messenger. Malachi Black from wrestling, Malachi and
Moloch are completely different. Moloch was the caretaker of babies and infants before the Guff, and when he became a fallen angel, he became like the reason that women have miscarriages. He was the one claiming babies' souls. That's what Moloch became, as far as a demon in hell.
That's Moloch.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking about Mala. It can be CHI.
Okay,
or
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
It's completely different then.
No, it really isn't completely different. It's all Moloch, I think, is Babylonian. I'm not sure. But anyway, so when you hear Azazel, it's really, his name was Azaz, but El meant he belonged to El. He was a servant of El. And going back to Jacob, when the story, Jacob wrestled with the angel all night, and he became Israel. Israel means wrestle with. He wrestled with God, the One, which is, as a little interesting side note, there's the word Elohim, which means God, but because Eim always means plural, that sort of feeds into that there were sort of these governor gods, sort of like the Anunnaki. They were governor. He was sort of like that god was like mayor of that area and had his own vassals. That's a whole. Anyway, so Azazel was the leader in the story of the angels that revolted against God. They lost, and Raphael defeated Azazel and put him in this hole and buried him forever. His own private hell was called Duatl. And I think in the movie Fallen, somebody somehow let him out. It's sort of like unleashing Tartarus. But Tartarus was a thing in Judaism as well. And in the Book of Enoch, it's a different place. Duatl was private for Azazel. So he... and Milton actually had it different also. They had a special level of hell. I think that the fallen angels were down in Tartarus, which is interesting because that's sort of where the Titans were put after the Greek gods, when the children usurp their fathers, which is sort of like a recurring theme in mythology. Or having sex with their mothers and things like that. But that's what they...
children,
Of course,
a lot of children eating in Greek mythology.
So the interesting thing about Azazel is that if you read the Genesis, and you don't have to get far into it, you just within the first 6 pages or so, you'll find the clause right in the beginning, like pretty much right after Adam and Eve. After they get cast out from Eden, a cherubim comes down with a fire sword to guard the palace. They never talk about his name. But then the sons of Adam come down, and they found that the sons of God come down, and they find that the daughters of Adam were fair, and they took whatever ones they liked. They created the Nephilim, however you want to pronounce it, who were the great men of renown, the giants of old, which is the same language as in the golden age of Greek mythology, which is also weird. You can also find that phrase similar enough in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is also sort of weird as well. Or maybe it's not so weird. Maybe there's nothing weird about it at all. Maybe it's just people plagiarizing each other to tell the story their way. But that's actually sort of what started Garden of Doom. Was this? I will go. Who the fuck are these heroes of old and great men of renown? We met Adam and Eve 2 paragraphs ago. What's old? What could possibly be old? And when I talk to the yeshiva graduates, they'll say, well, when all that begatting was happening, remember, people lived to be like 900 then, so there was lots of time in there, and so they're talking about that time, sort of between the begetting and the begatting, and sort of by the time we got to Noah. That's what they're talking about, the heroes of old, but it really doesn't read that way. It reads pre-Adam and Eve, which is also sort of supported by when Cain kills Abel and they banish Cain to a land which had a name called Nod, where the goat herders were. Well, if there's only Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, why would there be a land with a name where there's already goat herders? Who were those goat herders? So there's a whole bunch of, so a whole lot has emerged from this pre-flood people and things like that. And whether you're Graham Hancock or Zachariah Sitchin or Eric von Daniken, people look at that and say, well, obviously there were people before the flood, and it sort of matches archaeology. But another thing about the fallen angels and Azazel, if you believe that they were seraphim instead of cherubim, which is entirely possible, seraph means flying snake, basically. So you get from serpent to dragon to devil to the devil, and the serpent was originally long time ago the symbol of woman and chaos. You can sort of appreciate that, but also medicine and healing, but also immortality because they could change their skin. But the serpent went from something that was part of a duality to something evil, and that's sort of when they started taking over, when the patriarchal humans defeated the more matriarchal societies, which were more stagnant, meaning more settling, staying in one place, less roaming. And it's just a fun little thing there, because that brings you straight into dragons when you get to the whole flying snake thing. It also, if you get deep enough and if you go deep enough into it, it sort of also tells you where the reptilians came from, because if the Watchers mated with human women and they had children, Nephilim or otherwise, and some survived the flood, we know that. You had the Raphaim, you had Goliath, you had King Og. These were all giants post-flood. So some survived the flood. Some say by going into the hollow earth or climbing to the mountains, whatever it was. This is where your bloodlines comes into. That these Nephilim led to bloodlines, and they kept purification, which you think over thousands and thousands of years that actually the bloodlines would spread out. But as the new mythology goes, they actually kept the bloodlines within, and that's where you have your 13 families and your 10 kingdoms, and that's where you get your reptilians from. The seraphs, the flying lizards, who often are associated with women, and the serpent, which is the devil, the temptation, everything that's bad, and so that's where you get some people thinking that the reptilians rule the world, and for chaos and evil. And so that's why every time something goes wrong, no matter what the inconsistency is, it's nothing's inconsistency, because they're agents of chaos, because they want you to depend on something, whoever it is, and whenever the time is right, the 10 kings will amass their fortunes or the 10 kingdoms with the 13 kings will amass their powers and take over. And don't ask me when that happens. But Azazel was the leader of the Grigori, and the Grigori is just the Germanic word for the Watchers, who revolted against God. So there you go. I sort of gave you Azazel, but not so much. But to fallen, there are a lot of people who think that the Nephilim did die in the flood. Maybe some of their descendants didn't, but the Nephilim died out in the flood. But because they were angels, because they were immortal beings, just their corporeal bodies left, but their demonic spirits are still there. So the Nephilim are demonic spirits. So when Azazel got freed in Fallen, he's a demon. So he goes from place to place, just like all other demons you can think of. They possess. And that's that Azazel. Simply put, he's a demon, fallen angel demon, non-corporeal, and needs to haunt other humans. Which, I mean, there's the jinn. They do that too. There's tons of myths of creatures that occupy and basically possess humans, and that's what Azazel is, and that's the tie into the Nephilim, and it's all a roundabout way, although it's sort of a straight line if you look at it, straight to QAnon, and why that branch of Christianity or Orthodoxy can get behind anything if they're convinced that is the imperfect earthbound counter to the Antichrist, and because and then you always get into beware of false prophets. Well, who's the false prophet? Depending on, so I mean, but there are a lot of people who thought that Trump was that imperfect vessel, but was the one who was going to battle the Antichrist, and that's why there's so many Christian ardent Trump supporters, believe it or not.
You brought up the idea of, I'm sorry, go ahead. But I was just curious that the idea of the snake is only evil in Christian culture, because if you look towards the East, whether China, Japan, or whatever, the snake holds a very high deity status, as well as amongst the Mexicans in South America with Quetzalcoatl and a bunch of other. It seems like, I mean, even in Native American culture, you had the Hopi tribe, which, the entire tribe was based around the snake dance and praising of the snakes. And it's wild how the Europeans, or the European translation of the snake from Adam and Eve, is considered evil. Whereas in most other cultures, the snake is kind of seen as either a double-edged sword, where they bring fury and fire, but at the same time, they also bring rain and life. It's really wild how it's demonized in that sense. But I think snake is always.
It's not as simple as that, because nothing ever is. But I mean, it is Western where the serpents are bad. But even in Africa,
not even true Western, because like I said, Native American tribes all love the snakes until we came in and started killing off all the Western tribes,
Yeah, but you're right. The snake is often the duality of with in fact, the oldest myth, if you're to believe most historians, the oldest myth that we know of anyway is, at least from the Indo-European speaking people, which were probably in somewhere in the Russian steppes, or probably somewhere Kazakhstan, basically around Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, that part of the world. Was that there was a king of gods, and then there was Emo and Enwi, and Emo was the first man. Emo led to Manus, first man, and Enwi, the twin, who was a three-headed, six-eyed serpent who represented chaos and woman. So you're right, but in the Eastern religions, Chinese, Japanese, the serpent is venerated, and you're right. They bring fire as well and fear, but it's not. Like in India, it's sort of a little bit mixed. There's more of the duality.
India, you're right.
Mithras, Astro-Zoarianism sort of comes from there. It should have been mixed in Christianity, but it isn't. Judaism's a little bit more quiet on it.
Because when you were even talking about the steppes, I was looking up the Mongolian, because I know that Mongolians also hold snakes in high regard, and they're even seen as heavenly dragons, which is often interconnected to the Chinese culture of dragons and snakes and stuff like that. So it's really weird. Because you're right. India, I do know India does look down on snakes. It's it's like the spikes of hell, their version of it, of the afterlife, while you obviously waiting for reincarnation. And I know obviously Europeans have completely demonized snakes based upon Catholicism and everything else. But it's really weird how it almost seems like snakes being evil is the minority of religion as opposed to the majority of it. So it's it's interesting to me how it's taken so much of a hold that it's synonymous with evil when anything outside of our direct culture, it is not.
But even in our culture, I mean, the twirling snake around the staff, the two snakes, is the caduceus, that which is the sign is medicine, which is, I mean, most famous.
That's not even Christian, though. That's not even a Christian basis. That's
it's Greek. But these religions, you just put different heads on and names on the same things, basically. But like the staff with one snake, that's all chaos. That's all chaos magic. That's all bad. But two snakes becomes medicine. So it's even a little bit twisted there. But even in African, like there's the Gruselak in African. It's sort of like your stereotypical dragon, which hoards gems and gold in the cave near water. But it's not a dragon. It's a giant snake with like an elephant head and giant tusks but you can bargain with it. Like, it's going to kill you, but if you, like, bring it stuff, tribute, like Smaug from Lord of the Rings, it's like, all right, you can pass. But if you got nothing, beware. But you're right. The snakes were venerated because, they shed their... Well, I mean, there's a very simple take from some anthropologists, and sociologists, which there's probably something to it, but the snake is the oldest predator and most consistent predator of man that there is. Like, for 80 million years, there's been snakes out there being a predator, and that humans, we are wired, going back 7 million years to our, pre-Homo sapien, to be afraid of snakes. Why we're more afraid of snakes than wolves or big cats or bears, I don't know. I guess because they can be anywhere, they can get into anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry for hijacking it on the snakes. I was just very curious about that because you clearly know a little bit more about the background.
You're not hijacking anything.
Just essence. It's just I've always believed that snakes have gotten an unfair shake, and I think that
they have gotten an unfair shake.
Right.
But it's interesting because one of the reasons that we have developed that we can see things in color and we see things in 3D, because not all animals do. In fact, most don't. Is so that we could pick out snakes in our peripheral vision and discern their colors on the ground, because they were so replete everywhere. But the serpent sort of become the other. And then King St. George killed the dragon. If you look at the paintings, the dragon was like a turkey-sized dragon. It wasn't like this giant, Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings dragon.
Yeah, but we still believe that Loch Ness Monster is a giant serpent hanging around fucking Scotland.
Well, St. Patrick cleared Ireland of all the snakes. There were no snakes in Ireland. There's no snakes native to Ireland. There never were. It was paganism. So anyway, that was a very long dissertation on Azazel getting us into the serpents and the snakes. But it got us into dragons, which was on your list. And I think it's interesting that the most famous word for dragon is Dracul, which, it can mean dragon and devil in languages close to half of Mish's homeworld, pick that. And what is a vampire if not a demon that can somehow possess your soul? So there you have
a name correlation. Like, let me ask both of you guys that. Do you think that Dracul being the interpretation of devil, and obviously Vladimir Dracul, who was known for piking homeless people, basically, and peasants on his front yard, who later became the myth of Dracula, is that just wordplay, or was there some kind of connection between those?
No, there's definitely a connection to it. I mean, it was the banner of the dragon was strength and fear, and Dracula is was his son. He's the one that went from homeless people to Saracens, to Muslim invaders, possibly Huns. Who knows? Yes. They put their heads on pikes. They're in the Carpathians to with his small kingdom of Wallachia to.
Well, he invented tortures too. Like, there was a level of Dracul that people don't even realize that. When you start thinking of the ancient versions of tortures, not only was he just piking people's heads, he would pike them, sticking it in their taint and letting them slide down the pole and die slowly that way.
Jesus.
And this was, and he also did the other one, which was still to this day is probably one of the darkest things. Is he would invite all the children, the poor children, and the peasants and the poorest of people. He would bring them into his house, give them this huge feast that they've never had before, like fucking 20 courses, dancing girls and everything else like that, which used to be prostitutes. And when they were all full and happy, he would lock the doors and light his house on fire. That's what he did. He was a nut.
Let me ask y'all something. Do you think dragons are possibly like a descendant from like a leviathan or leviathans? I'm sorry.
No, I mean I think the dragons are largely a mythological creature. If you want to know what I think they're more likely, if there is a factual basis to it, I'm going to go with the funny GIF with the guy with the crazy hair from Ancient Aliens. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens. I mean,
really? I would think that the simple explanation would be it was some kind of a dinosaur that we haven't discovered yet, or we haven't really found the bones to. Because
the original bird
don't really know how many different descendants of dinosaurs there are, because it's difficult enough trying to get a full. I mean, what was it? Sue, which is the T-Rex, which is like probably the most popular dinosaur out of them all. We still don't even have a full, complete skeleton. I think we have, 96% of the skeleton, but we still don't even have 100% of any dinosaur.
That is entirely possible. I just don't know how you get from that to sort of the archetype of the dragon. I mean, maybe it provides the proof of the dragon, and maybe it's
the pterodactyl. I mean, you're right. I don't know. I'm just basing it upon any kind of reasonable logic that we have where dragons came from. I always figured it was something similar to what pterodactyls are. And if you go back to the biology of pterodactyls, they didn't have mammal bones. They had bird bones. And bird bones tend to decay and become destroyed a lot easier. So my thoughts were dragons were similar to a pterodactyl, whereas they didn't have these big, thick fucking mammoth bones that just last the test of time. They had tiny little bird bones that decayed so much faster. That's why it's difficult for us to find any kind of a proof of dragons.
True, but there were also big birds. I mean, there were, there's condors and there's also crocodilians. I mean, I'm not sure that those skulls would be much different. I mean, it's possible, but look, I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but even going to Quetzalcoatl, who was the feathered serpent, who was a hero from old who came back and returned, and nobody recognized, and if you actually look at the description of angels, the description of angels are not like beautiful people with wings. If you actually read the descriptions, they have 4 faces. They have a human face, a bull face, an eagle face, and a lion face, and 6 sets of wings on the top, on their backs.
I want to chime in on that because that came from Ezekiel in the Bible, and it is largely believed that interpretation of angels may have been closer, and I hate to get my Vince Russo wig on, may have been much closer to what aliens were being presented to. Gosh, who was it that was not Jonah? I forgot who it was in Ezekiel, but whoever it was in Ezekiel that witnessed those angels with the 4 faces and stuff like that also saw them coming from a great metal orb in the sky. The same one that was also repeated in the back of Revelations. So
yeah, but what has multiple wings that you can think of now? What, like fighter jets have tail wings, and so wouldn't maybe a longer, thinner one have another set of wings towards the top? And what has 4 faces? A flight helmet. In the front, you got the human face. On one side, one side they paint the lion. On the other side, they paint the bull. On the other side, they paint an eagle. Mystery solved.
I don't know, man. Like because that crosses over from religion, which is apropos, to logic and science, which something was obviously in existence. But at the same time, then you start getting into conspiracy theories. And I know I'm totally sidetracking your discussion on dragons. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Don't worry
about it. Sorry, Drew.
No apologies necessary.
So I love this because you haven't wanted to step into the Garden of Doom, but now you don't want to leave.
That's right.
You're in our quicksand.
You can never leave. But
like House of Mirrors in a labyrinth.
Oh, you want to start talking about minotaurs? You want to start talking about labyrinths? Minotaurs is probably one of my favorite monsters of Christian and theology and pretty much any kind of basis. I love the story behind it, the Greek mythology behind it. I love the idea of the labyrinth and the Minotaur being trapped in the labyrinth, the Minotaur not quite being human anymore because of a curse. Like, and I just love the idea of a giant bull man. I don't know. It's awesome. So, there's been a few movies that have referenced it over the years in TV shows from like Xena, Warrior Princess, and shit like that too. But it's always been a very depressing story. Like, it's always the Minotaur is a tortured soul. And I think everybody understands that. Like, the idea and the presence of a Minotaur is not just some raging demon that enjoys the taste of hurting people, but it's, in a lot of ways, it's like Medusa, you know, whereas Medusa is seen as this consummate figure of complete evil. But when you get down to the roots of something like a Medusa, it's actually a curse. It's actually someone who was, dare I say, almost innocent before they were, you know, tarnished with a curse that turned them into what Medusa is today. Same thing with Pandora. Pandora's box. A lot of this revolves around Greek mythology. But I know that there was also in the Japanese mountains, there were curses there where they became the mountain because of their love for, oh my gosh, I'm trying to go back in the time on this one. But they had a forbidden love, and then they were cursed to be a mountain, and they were cursed to exist for the rest of time. So, it's
usually in the Eastern, it's either you're in love with your sister or you're in love with the emperor's daughter or something, or wife, something like that.
Right, correct, yes.
But yeah, the Minotaur is definitely the precursor to Frankenstein. It's by no fault of its own. It's become forced to become a monster, and there's no way out except to kill to survive. I mean, you know, just like the monster in Frankenstein. You know, I mean, basically he's being chased to the Arctic Circle. All he wants to do is be left alone, and freaking Victor von Frankenstein keeps chasing him with, you know, doing the Iditarod or whatever. Medusa. I mean, the original myth of Medusa is, I mean, she was born that way. She's a Gorgon. She's pre the Olympians. The Gorgons either came at the same time as the Titans, or maybe even pre-Titan, like with Uranus and Rhea may have given birth to Medusa. But the question is, if it's your nature, are you evil? Is a wolf evil? Is a shark evil? But to a certain extent, there's isolation and loneliness there. But Medusa had two sisters also. I can't remember their names offhand because I wasn't prepared for Greek mythology at the moment, though I know enough to be dangerous off the top of my head. But if you want to go back to the Bible where it explains it, I mean, you know, in some of these books, again, non-canonical, you had Adam's first wife was Lilith, who was, you know, formed from the same dirt as Adam, you know, not from his rib like Eve was, and she wouldn't submit to him, and she's like, dude, no. And Adam's like, God, she sucks. She won't submit to me. And God's like, all right, I'll make you a new one. And Lilith, I cast you out. And then she went from being a beautiful woman to being basically like a harpy kind of thing. And God sent 3 angels after her to catch her. And like she goes to them, hey, listen, we could do this all day. I'm like Captain America. I can fly as fast as you can fly. You can't catch me, you 3 losers. Which again, you know, sort of impeaches that the angels don't have any thoughts of their own. And she's like, here's what will happen. I will not do anything bad. Well, I skipped she was killing babies. Like, you know, she sort of, you know, whether it's miscarriage or childbirth or whatever, she was for that Lilu too in Sumerian and Babylonian, and there's a cognate in Canaanite as well. So anyway, Lilith. So then she flies away. These 3, she's like, listen. As long as people are protected by angels, here's these amulets. As long as people are protected by you 3 angels, I won't take their kids. And they're like, that seems like a square deal to us. Go ahead. So that's why you have a lot of women who wear those the 3 angel pendants around their neck, the charms, to protect them against, you know, bad pregnancies and bad results and SIDS and things like that. But to, for every, she'd have 100 children at a time, and she made the chimera. She made she made monsters all over the place, which is sort of like the Anunnaki myth, where through their experimentation to try to get to the perfect slave race, they created all manners of things that were abominations or couldn't be controlled, which is not that different from the Nephilim myth that, some were the great heroes of renown, but some also were like monsters, giants, abominations. And Leviathan is thought to maybe be one of those. So no, I don't think the dragons are descendants of Leviathan, because the way Leviathan's actually described really isn't very dragon-like. It's not. It's a strange kind. It's maybe closer to the Hydra than if you actually read the description of Leviathan. I mean, it's not like a blue whale like people like to say, but it's not dragony.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Leviathan has a lot more in common with the idea of hydras than anything.
Yeah,
all those sea serpents are a different breed, though, too, because I mean, nobody thinks of dragons that swim. I think it's believed that even in media-based, forms of explaining mythology, if dragons do anything with water and go underwater, it's more like a bird. It's more to catch fish or to catch something out of the water, and they go down and they come right back up like a lot of birds do. But I don't think I've ever seen a dragon that specifically swims that's still considered a dragon.
Well, in China and in what we call the Far East, which is ridiculous, far from what, but there are water dragons specifically. I mean, in Shaanxi, there was a water dragon, but snakes were, remember, the first twin of the first Indo-European myth, which is 8,000 to 10,000 years old. Sure. Enwi was the twin, was the three-headed serpent, and lived in water, and water is associated with fertility and rain. So, right. So not. I mean, the chaos comes from the famine and the drought and the floods. A lot of these, more recent ancestors of ours dealt with floods constantly because the ice ages were receding, and then there were also torrential rains and whatever it was.
They were also considered water-based creatures, not just because of so either. It's been proven that in ancient times, when it rains, well, it still happens today, when it rains, worms come up to the top of the earth. And for a lot of ancient cultures, they thought worms were just baby snakes. So there was a lot of belief that snakes brought the rain. Snakes were attached to agriculture. Snakes fixed the earth, even though it was what we know today as being earthworms, right, that come up. But back then, the knowledge was not as prevalent, and there was no real science that was going around trying to prove and disprove the biology of snakes versus worms. But yeah, that's what it was believed.
Yeah, a lot of times your heroes change to villains as the needs change. When cultures stop needing something so much, like if you were in a place that was arid, you needed the rain, so maybe you worship the snake longer. But if you came to a place that was by a river, flooding was more your problem than needing the water. So the snake, and that's sort of what happened in our Fertile Crescent, up into Europe, and following the Danube. So, some of it is just the stories are telling a tale of, your life on the ground. Other stories are trying to tell stories of the procession of the stars, and you just have to figure out what constellations or how they drew the constellations, because they usually use the same constellations, just they might have called, what we call the bear, they may have called it the pot or something like that. But yeah, that's your dragons, that's your serpents, that's and that even takes us a little bit into Dracula. But I don't know if you want to, what order you want to go in, Drew. This is your gig, bud.
Well, I mean, I do want to know about Dracula. I'm fascinated by vampires and vampire culture. I know the idea is that it did start from Vlad the Impaler, but again, Jeff did his homework on this, so I'm interested to know where vampire culture did start, where it did originate from, if it did or didn't come from Vlad. So, Jeff, go ahead and tell us.
Okay. So this is probably going to be a little bit of a disappointment to people. So first, shameless plugs. I have 2 episodes of Garden of Doom on vampires. One is their history and literature, and one is just comparing myths of vampires from around the world. Both feature myself and C the Superior. You can find her on YouTube. She produced one of those. I also did 2 other shows, which was called The Vampire, who is a gentleman now in New Orleans, who's basically considered the king of the vampire. In New Orleans, he goes by Papa Czar. And also, I have an interview with Madam X, which I think was called "Welcome to the Night Side" or "Queen of the Night Side." She's both a witch and a vampire, so you can sort of see how modern vampires construct themselves. So, Dracula, sort of the idea of vampires as noble and sort of charming and intelligent and cunning and maybe, in this demonic, in these, in these cabals, that's new. That is a 19th century thing. There's nothing older than there. Actually, an American wrote a book called The Black Vampire, which is, and C the Superior found it, and I've listened to a bunch of shows, much bigger shows than mine, with fancy schmancy people who haven't found this book, and then they go to a poem called Camilla, which is also 19th century. Anyway, in the Black Vampire, it was a slave who was killed by his master, who came back to life or somehow became a vampire, but he was, he obviously got his revenge, but he was sort of like a, nobleman. Camilla was a woman, almost like a Lilith, who was scorned and drank blood and but was very much nobility. Dracula was just sort of Bram Stoker's invention. He borrowed from Camilla, turned it into a man. During the Black Plague and feudalism and landholders, I mean, you could see how the metaphor for the rich sucking the blood out of the commoners and being served by the underclass, the lowest of the low, the gypsies at that time in that part of the world, the familiars, the insane like Renfield, just for the promise of immortality or being close to your earthbound version of God. That's all new. That's like the last 200 years. Prior to that, there's lots of myths and creatures from everywhere that if you want to call them vampiric, you can. But if you want to call them witches, you can. If you want to call them zombies, you can. If you want to call them revenants, you can. And revenants are basically like zombies, but closer to the White Walkers than the mindless zombies in Walking Dead or Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. Sort of like they have a purpose and some have intelligence. Like in Game of Thrones, you had the masses. They knew what they were and they had thoughts, but they followed their leaders and their ring wraith like leaders. And then there was the king, and they obviously had thoughts and smarts. And so some are revenants and zombies. Some can be called shapeshifters, which really is closer to a witch thing or even a werewolf thing. So
let me ask you this real quick, because I know you're going down in your diatribe, but you hit on something that I really wanted to kind of throw in there from what I understood.
Go ahead, Matt.
With zombies, like the original idea of where zombies came from was a misunderstanding of death. So when the body decomposes, it expands, it contorts, it distorts. And back then, they thought that this was the bodies coming back to life. And specifically around Greek mythology, because the term Nosferatu means disease bearer. And there was a lot of correlation, or at least believed correlation, between that, even though the stories don't completely line up, with the Greek interpretation of what zombies were and where vampires may have come from. So the idea was that zombies were the bodies, because back then they didn't bury bodies, right, Drew? They just threw them out on the fucking lawn. If you dropped dead, that's where you were left. They didn't have an understanding of keeping things clean. And even though there were certain funeral rites for people that had passed, for the most part, 90% of the population didn't have the clout to have those kind of ceremonies. So people were just left out in the open, and the sun and the moisture from the water and the ocean air and everything else like that made a lot of the bodies bloat. However, that wasn't the case for all bodies. So if people died in caves, which a lot of people were living in caves and these like kind of sectioned off areas, the bodies didn't bloat, and they believed that those bodies were almost vampiric, that they were still alive, because their bodies didn't contort in the same way, or at least not as quickly as the ones that were out in the ocean air did. So I thought that from what I understood over the years was that this might have been the origination of where the idea of vampires versus zombies came from, which was just a complete misunderstanding from Greek people as to what happens to the body after death.
That's part of it. I mean, there's actually the first known burial was 72,000 years ago. So we've been mostly burying for a long time, and not all cultures. I mean, a lot of cultures left the bodies out for like the birds to take them to the afterlife and things like that. They take them to a high place.
Or they put them in the fucking water and just kick the boat. Like
that too. So, you know, the fires, you know, somehow returning it to the earth or what have you. But leprosy is also very much associated with zombieism. So is rigor mortis.
Sure.
So pretty much any excuse, but also like when people fell into comas then like they do now, but since you thought they were dead or basically dead and you left them alone, they would get terrible bed sores, and you come back and, you know, one entire side of their body would be black and purple and no skin on it, you know, and probably insects and maggots and whatever feeding on them, and then they're getting up and going, and, you know, they probably can't speak anymore, and they're like, you know, so there's a lot of that too, but zombies, you know, eat flesh, which includes drinking blood. Lilith, she, you know, drank the blood of babies. So don't forget, Lilith, the mother of monsters, rejected by Adam and cast out by God, you know, feeds into this, you know, demon thing. You know, she's the first demon, maybe the consort of the devil, often called, which goes back to our, you know, QAnon stuff that's going on now, and not just in America. But there's lots of... There's from all over. There's like insects that suck blood in Africa. The ads, like spelt the same way. Well, we spelt the same way as the tool. The ads, and you know it has large fangs and sucks blood. I mean, you know, maybe it was to explain malaria and mosquitoes and you know, warn kids of those kinds of dangers. I mean, there's myths. You know, there's the umpirs and the strigoi in Eastern Europe, into Russia, and into Siberia, the steppe. But I mean, they're all over the place. But none of them, if you read about them, none of them are really like the vampire, like you're thinking about, like Dracula or Blade or Underworld or whatever. That's all. This is all a very new, romanticized, modern construct of what the vampire is. So even one of the words for vampires in Greek is basically the same as the Greek word for werewolf. It's like verolokos, something like that, or verolikos, where, I mean, you can hear vera, where, lycos, lichens. You've heard lycanthropes, you know, which, you know, shapeshifters. You know, so there it is. There's your vampires. But if you want more on that, shameless plugs for listening to the 2 vampire shows on the history of vampires. And if you want to hear, you know, what modern vampires have to say about their lifestyles now, which is interesting in a different way, I commend you to those shows. I think both of them dropped during October for Halloween month. The modern day vampires. The other ones are older. I mean, one of them is probably a year ago.
Before we get to the next topic, Mish, I was going to ask you, because you had mentioned how, you know, back in the day they would just throw bodies out, like on the street, on your yard, pretty much.
Yeah,
like
I was
if you
being
died,
a little grandiose with it, but
no, I know that. But like, where did the idea, if you know, of, you know, burying people come from?
Oh, no. Jeff might know better than this. I didn't even know that we buried bodies that late. I imagine that. I think it probably came from the same birth as creating things like aqueducts. They realized that there were diseases. They realized that, there were problems with leaving the bodies out. See, religion overall wasn't just a way to answer for death, which in reality, that's the point of all religion, is to answer death and to answer where we came from. But at the same time, it was also a way to get people to kind of take care of themselves, do better for themselves. Once upon a time, science and religion were completely intertwined. I would assume that the idea for burying bodies came from wanting to be clean, and cleanliness is next to godliness, et cetera, et cetera. I think it comes from that same vein of not only is there a ceremony and almost like a reverence for the dead, which is something that is held in high regard with a lot of religions, but at the same time, it kept people from getting sick. I mean, gosh, I was just discussing this with somebody else the other day during the Black Plague. Actually, I was talking, I think it was with the missus and her kiddos and stuff, that during the Black Plague, people wanted to kill all the cats because they thought that cats were the ones spreading the actual plague, when in fact it was the rats and the mice that the cats were killing that were spreading the plague. And even at that time, because of our just misunderstanding of things, it was widely determined that rats came from dirty clothes and garbage. They didn't believe that they procreated. They believed that they literally sprang from piles of dirty clothes and garbage.
Wow.
And so that is what created a lot of people trying to keep the place clean. I mean, obviously you can go into the masks and everything else like that, but the plague doctors and whatnot. But the reality is it was our misunderstanding of the situation that literally got us to kill the animals that were trying to protect our asses. And so the Black Plague destroyed, it's a dark spot in history,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. The first kind of worship was ancestor worship, which may or may not be related to the real first kind of worship, which would have been, animism, meaning everything is life and spirit, the stars, sun, the ground, everything. But the first burials, I mean, I'm not sure what the chicken or the egg is. Part of it is exactly what Mish said, is it caused disease. You don't want to be the disease to spread. And it was only a couple hundred years ago that some guy by accident realized that if you washed your hands, you had like 80% higher chance of successful childbirth than if you didn't wash your hands between deliveries.
We still had leper colonies in the 1900s, guys.
Absolutely.
I didn't think of it like that. It wasn't
not to bring up the same sounding word again, but a different word. The island of Molokai was a leper colony in Hawaii. But not just the disease spreading, but it also brought bugs to your area, which was not fun for you, which also spread disease. They certainly knew that bug bites could be associated with disease, but you also brought scavengers and animals, and so you're seeing your ancestors being torn apart by coyotes, wolves, foxes, crows, ravens, vultures, whatever it is. So, I mean, you want to hide them. Doesn't work in the cave because there's cave dwellers. It does, I guess if you weren't near deep water, or if you weren't a water-faring people, the easiest thing is to bury them in some way. Now, others took the opposite approach. They would carry them up to the plateaus of a high hill or whatever, and let the birds take them away. I mean, First Nations peoples were still doing that 150 years ago. Maybe still are to a certain extent. But yeah, that's part of what it was. And then ancestor worship became a big part of things, that your ancestors were always with you, and you can tie it into the social contract of respect your elders, and how we just naturally really don't want nihilism and anarchy. We need some sort of order, because if we don't, then we are weaker than the wolves. If we're divided, we're strong. We're united. We can fend off the wolves and the saber-toothed cats and the big bears and whatever it is. But yeah, probably lots of reasons for it. But yeah, the burials go back to the oldest burial that's known of is in East Africa, and is 72,000 years old. And they know it was a burial because it was a baby, and it was put into the fetal position, and they put like blankets and some of its toys or things with it. So it was, so there was definitely a concept of life isn't over. There is some sort of afterlife, and take things with you. So we were probably doing burials way earlier than that, and I don't know when you started putting things into graves, but you can imagine that a distraught mother, at some point
prolonged the culture. I mean, just to throw it out there, I mean, you're talking about the disease and stuff, but they understood not just the physical ramifications of having dead bodies around with animals and insects and disease and everything else like that, but you kind of touched on it, the emotional side of it. Humans are still an emotional creature from the very beginning to now, even though our emotions have completely evolved from what we were. But seeing your family torn apart, especially children, even after they were dead, that had to be devastating to watch. So yeah, I imagine that's where a lot of these rituals and stuff kind of came from, and then they attached it to gods, and may the gods keep my child safe after they've gone to the next plane. And it's almost like the evolution of religion in itself. So religion and all these gods and demons and everything else like that were ways to kind of curtail humanity into being the best version of humanity that they could be. Now, when you look at religion, there's so many different kind of slights and interpretations, and some of the interpretations are just purely violent and evil in some cases. But I imagine initially a lot of it was just to kind of try and keep everybody sane in a world that they had no understanding of, Drew.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And don't forget, the people were hunter-gatherers then, but, it's not like they were always on the move. I mean, they did stay in places sort of until they ran out of the resources and had to go somewhere else. So, I mean, they were, having, 150-pound, dead corpses nearby is, not attractive to anyone. And then having, a pile of 18 dead corpses half a mile away isn't particularly attractive either. So yeah, some sort of getting rid of them, it was much, and then to think that the bird that you shot down and you're eating your ancestor, had to factor into it. If you were eating vulture or fox for lunch, the next day, that fox or vulture probably dined on your dad.
Cannibalism was wild too, because I mean, I only know cannibalism from, well, I mean, I don't know cannibalism, but I mean, the stories that I've read about cannibalism being the most prominent were in South America with the Incans and the Mayans and the Aztecs, and obviously in parts of Mexico and Central America as well. But they did it because they ate other people, not because they had a shortage of food, quite the opposite. They believed that they would gain the powers and the strengths of the families that, or the ancestors of that warrior that they defeated.
So, Wendigos? Sorry about that, but yeah, like
right,
Wendigos?
No, right. And that's almost like a form of vampirism too, when you come down to it, because they did it not because they were looking to, create brethren underneath the movie, the Hollywood cinema version of a vampire, but they really thought that all of the powers, all of the gifts that this person had that they defeated are now theirs if they ingest parts of their body. And I know for a fact that there are still tribes, indigenous tribes, that still do cannibalism. I guess not as graphically as they used to, where they would just eat bodies and bodies and bodies. But I think that from what I understand is even in South America, there are still tribes that when their elders pass, they will have like a piece of them. So they'll take like a piece of ear or they'll take a piece of spleen or something like that and try to ingest them, believing that all of the existence of their previous genetics, I guess is a nice way to put it, their DNA and their genetic history will now be absorbed into their own body.
Don't forget, everybody that's in South America from before 500 years ago, either came from Central Asia and East Asia over the land bridge in Beringia, or they somehow sailed across from Oceania and what was then Sunderland, and some people think Lemuria was a continent that was larger. But anyway, there was a lot more solid land and a lot more islands between here and there. The oceans were 400 feet lower than they are now, 12,000 years ago or so. So they brought with them, from the Asian, Southeast Asian, Polynesian. I mean, the word cannibal is I think Malaysian or Indonesian. It comes from that part of the world. But I mean, Kronos ate his kids. I mean, the Titan ate his kids. So this is
we still do it. Actually, Joey just brought it up. He's like, he's making a joke. He's saying, "I'm down to eat some placenta capsules. Them shits got you strong." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I remember France. In France, they would actually they would have these top star Michelin chefs serve you placenta. So you could prepare, you can basically give them a placenta or they have a placenta. I'm not sure how they get them. And I think it's like $400 or $500 a plate even back then. So it was a crazy amount of money. But just the idea, and even though we know placenta is there for the mother, it's in order to replenish her nutrients and stuff like that. I mean, even to this day, you can have hoity-toity society still serving human flesh, parts of a human body to another person. So it's not even like it's a dead idea. It's still kind of current and almost accepted depending on what part of the world you're in.
If this food crisis and the droughts continue, I guarantee that in about a year or so we hear a story from someplace in Sudan or Chad or in the Mongolian Gobi Desert or whatever that someplace that hasn't been able to get any grain for 6 months that the cannibalism makes a comeback in some places. I mean, meat is meat. There is something to the fact though that eating human flesh is not healthy for humans, like physically. Like it's like too much of the same kind of microbes and whatever. It'll make you sick. But right. Getting sick is better than dying. I guess starving. I guess
I mean, you only hear that kind of running joke with like hoity-toity rich people, like Mish said, is that in a lot of these like dark societies, you hear about celebrities, the Illuminati eating flesh, eating, the blood of or not eating, but drinking the blood of the innocent. And it's just...
Let me tell you something.
Crazy to think about.
I know a lot of rich people, okay? I am not rich, but I know a lot of rich people. But by your definitions, 10 years ago, I was rich. By my definition, 10 years ago, I wasn't. I knew fabulously rich people. I'd never heard any of them talking about blood.
I said joke. I said it was a running joke.
Yes.
I mean, but I want you to know just how close I am to this. I mean, literally, the house I grew up in, okay, that my parents only sold like maybe 3 years ago, okay, on my right was George Ross. If you don't know who George Ross is, watch like the first 8 seasons of The Apprentice. He's the old man that sits to Donald's right. He was his outside lawyer who became his inside lawyer for real estate. His name's George Ross. I've known him, by 54 now, so I've known him 40x years. On my left is a family, I won't give you their name, but their son, who I know since he was born, because he's younger than me, he is, let's just say, husband, because they're legally divorced for legal reasons. He's also currently in federal prison for real estate fraud, and he was a cooperating witness in the Mueller investigation. He is Paul Manafort's son-in-law. He's married to Paul Manafort's daughter. So I am very close to this part of it, and I've never heard anyone speak about Illuminati or blood drinking or pizza places in Georgia, Democrats drinking blood. And if I was going to hear it, I think I would have heard it from either side next door.
Let me throw this out here to piggyback off of what we were saying just a second ago about the placenta. Apparently, it's not even in France. It is legal in California to eat placenta. Now, there are Stanford University professors that, like John Gosling, that said eating a placenta is part of the infant, no question. It's discarded after birth, but it is still human, and therefore he considers it cannibalism. But according to the laws of the California Penal Code, it is not considered cannibalism. Eating placenta is perfectly legal. So if you're really hungry and you want to try something new, head on over to California.
Yummy.
Well, there's also a lot of things.
And a Diet Coke.
And a Diet Coke, yes.
But what's in there is stem cells. I mean, that's the thing. Right. Okay, so I have a book. It will never be finished because I have no beginning. I mean, I have no middle. I have a beginning, and my beginning gets ever longer. And you would think that means that the middle is getting longer, but no. I have an end, which is short. But I have absolutely zero middle. I have no concept what to do with the middle. But it's basically shit we've been talking about. Basically, Cain was the second vampire. His mother Lilith was the first, and she's basically a mutant. And basically, their stem cells always, never matures. That they always have stem cells forever.
Ask you the connection to that, because I've always been curious, and I think a lot of people understand that Cain is considered the child of Lilith, but Cain and Abel were brothers. Now, is that only brothers by the interpretation of it? Because Abel was Eve's child. So how does that work? How did that work in the Bible? I don't even understand the connection between the two. It would be like if Drew Yari had a baby with Lena Vega, and then Drew Yari had a baby with Eve Lopez, or Electra Lopez.
No comment.
And then they called them both...
Here's what I found.
Shh, Alexa. My stupid monitor, I'm sorry. And then they were both considered brothers, as opposed to individual children based upon those mothers.
Well, firstly, all hail Drew Yari, because nice pulls, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know about me and the Latinas, so, I mean, double respect over here. Okay, there is no major religion that subscribes to that Cain was not the child of Adam and Eve. This all goes back to non-canonical books where Lilith was the first wife, and it is the Masonic legend that Adam had a child with Lilith, and that child was Cain. And from Cain comes the 12. There you go. So you have Cain and the 12. So there's 13. There's your magic number 13. There's your magic number 12. But if you listen to Donovan Atlantis, you'll hear what the 12 are: the poet, the artist, the musician, the smith, the mathematician, everything that was useful, the doctor, the physician, all of that came from Cain, who came from Lilith, who was on the left hand, who came from Lucifer, who was on the left hand of God. Okay, so that is the Masonic legend. So I don't know much about Masons or the Grand Masons or the Freemasons. I don't even think it's real, because everyone who claims to be a Mason says they can't tell you anything. So I'm really, I'm really sure it's mostly bullshit. And some actual experts I've talked to will tell you the Masons didn't even exist until, a few hundred years ago. But then if you listen to other people who say, yeah, because they were the Rosicrucians for 100 years, and before that they were the Hermetical Society, and before that they were the Templars, and the Templars turned into the Cathars. So, I mean, the thing about conspiracy theories is no matter how many answers you have, they can always pivot, and you cannot disprove anything they say. Anyway, that's the Masonic legend, and that's their version of Christianity, is that Cain came from Lilith. Lilith was evil. She did not submit to man. She did not submit to Adam. She's the mother of monsters, and Cain was the first monster, but he was the perfect monster because he looked like a human. And from Cain was basically the Watchers. Cain was basically the Eternals in the movie. Cain would introduce the plow to people. Okay? Cain was Thoth the Atlantean, or Hermes or Quetzalcoatl coming and teaching the people from the lands. Every land has a legend where somebody comes from the sea or the stars to teach them these skills. Osiris did that.
I had a completely different understanding of Cain and Lilith. And just to quietly throw this out here real quick, just to piggyback off of it, Lilith was indeed Adam's first wife, but Lilith wasn't inherently evil. She was evil to Adam and to God only because she chose not to listen to them and kind of march to her own drummer. The problem with Lilith was that she was made equal to Adam in every way. In thought, in physical prowess, everything. She was literally the female version of man. That's why Eve was created, to be subservient, to be dominated. And in the birth of Cain, in this case, Cain wasn't evil. Cain didn't have Lilith's qualities of being evil, but when compared to Abel, Cain was more dominant. And when Cain killed Abel and lied to God, it was when supposedly put the mark of upon Cain that he became that first version of the immortal, the very first vampire or Methuselah or whatever you wanted to call him. It was because of God, not because of Lilith, that Cain became that way. That's just, once again, from what I've understood over the years. I'm sure you're a lot closer to what, the actual religions and theology say, Jeff.
Well, I might be, but that story you just told exists. So there is that version, and that version is closer to the religions, except no Lilith. No Lilith was about. This was just Cain exercising free will of being greedy. I mean, you have to remember the whole beginning of humanity is basically humans disappointing God. Yeah. Time and time out, so much that he had to have a flood and destroy everyone, and only preserve, some of the kids, Noah's family, and if you read the book of Enoch, Lamech, who was Noah's father, looked at Noah and he didn't look like a human baby. That he's like, that is not my son. So again, he's Nephilim. He's one of these houses. Even flows into that. And then there was the Tower of Babel, where he had to destroy again, and Sodom and Gomorrah, he had to destroy humans again. Jericho had to destroy the Canaanites again. He's by the time you get to Israelis, the Israelites, they're letting him down time and time again, and he's got to teach them lesson after lesson after lesson. So, I mean, you didn't really need the mark of Cain. That sort of came later. The mark was more. It wasn't a physical mark in the religions. It was he's banished. He was banished to the land of Nod. Again, what kind of land has a name where there's no other people, where there's goat herders? And who's herding these goats? The foxes? I don't know. But anyway, but this is what I'm telling you is the Masonic legend, which is their version, which again you cannot disprove, and there are books that support it. There are books out there, but it may be that whoever started this myth is the person who wrote that book. I mean, it could very well be that right now there's a book I'm reading called The Fall by Neil Stevenson, who's a great author. But basically, if you read it, you could say this is how you create the Matrix, and the universe is repeating themselves. And in 10,000 years, if someone found this but no other book, they might think that that's a holy book. So some guy might have written it one day and said, this is the way, and it sounds ridiculous, except when we know that there's dozens of cults right now where somebody says, this is the way, and they get hundreds, if not thousands of people to follow them. I mean, Jared Leto right now has a little cult, so... I
mean, he does, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Heaven's Gate. I mean, that's not, every few years there's a new apocalypse, and every few years they say, well, this is why the apocalypse didn't happen, but it's coming in 8 more years. I mean, there's the people I keep saying QAnon, but actually QAnon jumped onto things that existed before QAnon. They just subscribed to the ideas and made them more widespread. But they point to something that the Dalai Lama said in 1890. He said that you're going to have 50 years of war. So 1890 to 1940, a lot of war there, right? Then he says 70 years of peace, and then he says there'll be 18 years of continuous war, and that brings us to 2028, which is why you hear about 2029 and 2030 being end of times. However, if you look at 1940 to 2010, where are those 70 years of peace? I mean, you tell me. I mean, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and these are only ones that the U.S. is involved with. Panama. I mean, you had wars all through Africa and South America, revolutions, Cuba, Angola, Cuban troops being deployed by the Soviet Union, civil wars in Soviet bloc countries. It was not a time of peace. Pol Pot, Mao. I mean, the Red March. I mean, this was not 70 years apiece, but they go 70 years apiece, and then they jump right to 2010, 18 years of war. It's like, well, Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, it's all based on what the U.S. is doing. So, I mean, yeah, were there 18 years of continuous war? I would argue there's probably never been a time where there wasn't 18 years of continuous war. I mean, that's why the Pax Romana is so romanticized. But there was still wars just on the borders, just not within the 700-mile radius of or 200-mile radius of the home city. So anyway, so you can the point is doctrines can believe whatever they want, and it's hard to get them off of those perches. But yeah, Cain can be lots of things. But anyway, my book was that the thing was that Lilith's mutation was that her stem cells stayed forever. It's like her blood never matured, and Cain inherited that. But and that was a rare mutation, and they helped the humans defeat the giants.
Isn't that also why we're all technically children of Abraham? I mean, from that same idea. I don't know. I'm just correlating this now with the way you're describing Lilith's genes.
Well, yeah, because Abraham is a direct descendant of. I mean, so all right. So Adam and Eve, when Abel was killed, Cain went his own way. God replaced Abel with Seth. Seth had children, led down to Noah. Noah had children, and they repopulated the earth. So you had Ham, went to Africa, the Hamites. You had a different Cain, the Canaanites. I can't remember how many children he had, but obviously the boys are the one that matters. And Abraham was a direct descendant, obviously, because Noah was the only man. So yeah, I mean, they're all descendants of Adam, and Abraham is there. From Abraham came Jacob, and from Jacob came his 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel. And so, yeah, we're all children of Abraham if you believe that. We're all children of Noah if you believe that. We're all children of Adam if you believe that. I mean, to be anything other than that would mean you don't believe that religion, or you believe that Cain found a way to create life, other human life, unilaterally, like became one of those frogs that can give birth without any fornication, which may also be a reptilian idea. So yeah. So, but I mean, I think Abraham is just it's a polite way of saying Abrahamic religions without trying to say Christianity, because usually people who use the word Abrahamic religions, they're talking about Christianity. I mean, they're sort of ignoring Judaism and Islam, but they're politely they're making it inclusive without making it exclusive at the same time. It's sort of code.
No, I like that, because I mean, I've been hearing that ever since I was a kid, is that, we're all children of Abraham. And it's,
we're all people.
I like the idea that it's not necessarily put into a factual sense that there's a 0.00001% of me that is related to direct of Abraham, more as it is an explanation of it being a religious connection.
Yeah, we know that, science has said, and science can be wrong, we all know that, but science has said that they found a mitochondrial Eve from 200,000 years ago, that all of us have DNA from this remains of a female found in Africa. It's either East Africa or West Africa, sort of like just above the Saharan line. Of course, the Sahara was different back then. But anyway, there's a mitochondrial. Like if you Google mitochondrial Eve, you'll find it. It's pretty well established. Then again, 500 years ago in Europe, we thought the Earth was flat, even though the rest of the world knew it wasn't. So yeah, you can go in a lot of different directions, which is why there's so many different religions, which is why Christianity has 30,000 different sects and denominations.
Wow.
30,000. I mean, the Muslims have more than we know, but there's basically two big ones. There's sort of the mystics, the Sufism, but there's basically Shia and Sunni. And the interesting thing is they flip-flop geographically at the grandchildren of Muhammad's generation. But Judaism has the three major ones: Reform, Conservative, Orthodox. But you also have Hasidic, and you have sort of different levels there as well. But I mean, Christianity has somewhere between 30 and 35,000 different denominations. It also depends how you define Christian. I mean, Christians don't consider the Mormons Christian, but the Mormons consider themselves Christian. So it's a little cray-cray out there. I mean, it can give you a headache. It can also be marvelous, and it can also be constant fodder for a show called The Garden of Doom. Yeah, so monsters, right? So, Drew, what are we up to?
Jesus Christ. We might have to finish this on another show, but let's try to do like two more. The Dybbuk, who, if that name sounds familiar to most people, it's I might be getting it wrong, so Jeff, correct me because you did your homework. But it's a demon in Hebrew culture that
Canaanite, which is the same part of the world. Pre-Hebrew. So Cain, we were talking about Noah's kids. One was Cain, a different Cain, obviously, but the Canaanites. So they populated the what we call the Levant now, the Levantine area, which is basically the southern part of Turkey, probably just past Moab before you get to like what's now Iraq, to the middle of Jordan, and about down through Israel, Palestine, whatever you want to call it, and to the Red Sea. So not Egypt. That was Canaan, and that's so Dybbuk is a Canaanite. Basically, Dybbuk is a male version of the main myth of Lilith, except not this first wife or first spouse of Athon. It's just a demon. It's a demon that is a malicious possessing spirit, maybe Nephilim, you hear that a lot, the same kind of thing. And it is the soul of a dead person, but it particularly goes after children. So again, sort of like Lilith, the child stealer. Lilith steals the children that aren't protected by the amulets of those three angels. I wish I could remember their names, but apparently it's still like the best-selling amulet in the world. Like that and the evil eye are like 1 and 2, maybe even above a crucifix. But that's Dybbuk. Is a Canaanite. We'll keep it simple. He is in Jewish mythology, but Jewish mythology and Canaanite mythology, I mean, where you can separate the two. I mean, listen, I'm part Jewish, but they tell you that the Jews will have you believe that they were Jews for 5,783 years. That's when 5,783 years and about a month and a half ago, God said the words, "Let there be light." That's what Rosh Hashanah is. Then they'll also tell you that the Judaism started with where Jacob was going to sacrifice his child. I mean, Abraham was going to sacrifice Jacob because God told him to, and God said, "No, I was just testing you, but now we have a deal with all of your descendants. I have a covenant with your people." That's the birth of Judaism. It really isn't. The Jews were pagans. The people of Israel, or the 12 tribes, whatever you want to say it, Canaanites. They called themselves Canaanites until after Moses led the Exodus, or whoever led the Exodus. I've spoken to someone who said there was actually 2 Exoduses out of Egypt. Anyway, that's Canaanite. So Hebrew, Jewish, and Canaanite are largely the same thing, but the Canaanite mythology is great. You have these scary you have your Lilith, the harpy. You have Baal, the giant goat, the big black goat, who's the fertility, but also hated castration, and anyone who was infertile was his enemy, but he was also the god of rain, and which is also fertility. But so Dybbuk, Hebrew, Canaanite, whatever you want to call it. It's really a time too old to limit it to one particular people, because the peoples were really named by the cities that they were associated with. So you have like if you read the Bible, you'll see millions of different.
Hey guys, I gotta go. I got a guest.
All right, see you.
All right, Mish, appreciate it, man.
All right, bye.
Birthday.
The Ammonites, the Axumites, the Moabites, the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Israelites, the Hebrews, So anyway, that's Dybbuk. But simply, Dybbuk is a male demon who inhabits and takes over the souls of children. Basically, makes children naughty and ultimately kills them.
Yeah, sounds about right. All right, we got
I'm
about
trying to keep it short for you, but yeah, so yes.
all right, we got about four more. Since we're on the topic of, I guess, demon children things, Bagul, which is from where I got the idea. Well, not the idea, but like I saw that on the movie Sinister. Which anyone's seen Sinister? Good movie, good horror movie. Tell me what you were able to find about Bagul, and if Bagul was even a thing, or what it originated from.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that your questions came from movies, and that's cool. Bagul is a thing. Bagul is Babylonian. So Babylon is sort of Iraq, parts of Iraq, but it went into what's now Syria, probably parts of Iran. The Babylon culture came after the Sumerians. There's some overlap, but before the Persians and the Parthians and the Chaldeans. Anyway, Bagul is a Babylonian creature, and it's basically an incubus. It's basically a male spirit who comes in to a body to have sex and procreate with a woman. So
like
it's sort of like bad things. Well, succubus is the female version of the incubus.
Right.
So yeah, but it's a male that has sex, and then you get demon children. You can you can be possessed. It's got a lot of similarities with Moloch, the Moloch that Mish was talking about early, who's a pagan deity that was venerated by the Canaanites and the Ammonites. Again, cities, places. Canaan, Ammon was a city. And basically, Moloch and Bagul, Middle Eastern god that requires children sacrificed by burning, oftentimes. Some have called Bagul the brother of Moloch, but I don't. I mean, I think they may be cognates. They may be the same creature with different names, the same entity. But yeah, it basically requires child sacrifice, but also can go into your body, and basically it's probably an excuse for men doing what they wanted with women.
Just another excuse to be an asshole, pretty much.
Pretty much. I mean, the thing is I never got to it earlier because Mish was pointing out correctly that a lot of this stuff is about Lilith was not evil. She just was not submissive to Adam. She was equal. That was considered evil by the people who are making those decisions. There's a reason most of the major religions, or the big three, especially in the Orthodoxy, are patriarchal. Like women can't even be in the same room to worship. There has to be dividing walls. They have to hide themselves and cover themselves. It's patriarchal. So the woman not being submissive to man is evil, and some of that exists today, and it's sort of burrowed into our DNA because it's been part of it. I mean, close your eyes and say priest or rabbi, you're going to think of a man.
I didn't even think about that. That's pretty nuts. We kind of talked about like Satan, Lucifer, so we can kind of.
Don't forget, Eve bit the apple. Eve took the temptation from the serpent, who was never called Satan until much, much longer, much later.
Well, yeah, because like do you know about a website? It's called Ranker.
Yeah,
it's basically like one of those like random like websites where it's like look at the top 10, blah blah blah. There's an interesting portion on this website where like it'll tell you about like the history of the devil, Lucifer, and it tells you like the differences between those names. Like they're not all the same person, like you just said. Like Satan's different, the devil's different, Lucifer's different. Beelzebub, Mephistopheles is different. There's other different names, and they all serve different purposes in hell. So that's I don't know if you've done that. I don't know if you've done that on your show yet, but you should probably cover that. That'd be pretty cool.
I'm sure that I have done. I mean, I've done shows on Lucifer. I've done shows on I've done shows on different angels and demons. I haven't done deep dives into any other than Lucifer, and even then, it sort of got it's sort of. Yeah, well, get sidetracked. That's what I do in the garden. I meander at times. So yeah, at some point I'll go more into deep dives with some of them. But sometimes it's the guests. Like sometimes I have the guests that they like me. They start talking about these other things. I mean, the way I think is largely influenced by the people I learn from, who are my guests or authors or whatever, and they sort of think and write the same way. So it's hard for me just to focus down. But like for instance. Belial, Belial, who's one of the 7 lieutenants of the Watchers, the war against God. They say he's cognate for Baal, the Canaanite god we were just talking about, the enemy of the Israelites, right? Or the Hebrews, who later became the Jews. And Baal, or Belial is also Beelzebub, just a high-ranking demon in hell. They're all the same person, and part of it is a way to demonize, the Canaanites versus the Israelites. Because whether you're Jewish or Christian, the Israelites are your good guys, in that, or at least they need to exist for your Messiah to come back, right? So Baal is the bad guy god. So while he might be represented by a giant black goat, it might be like Zeus, who came down like a goat all the time, but you still picture Zeus as a man with thunderbolts. Anyway, that's a long way around. But you're right. A lot of these names are for the same thing, and then they all grow their own mythologies and their own fan fiction, and it's hard to tell what's fiction and not. Because there really wasn't much in the way of writing, period. I mean, the first writing that we know of is from around 6,000 years ago, and the first fictional, and that was like, bills of lading. It was like inventory on what was coming in and out of ships, and trade and caravans. Very boring stuff. So that's why the Epic of Gilgamesh is talked about so much, because it's the first writing of fiction that people know about and know was fiction. And of course it references a flood myth and giants and got someone who's 2/3 divine and half magical. So I mean, you have like a giant thinking Sasquatch in there as well. You have a giant Umbaba. So you have the whole tie-in with the king and the land, and the king is part of the people, and creatures made from sand and dust. So I mean, it's all there. I mean, nothing's new under the sun. We just give them different names and different variations, and just multiply that by a world where there were maybe 200,000 people to 200 million people to 2 billion people to now over 7 billion people. There's a lot of imaginations out there.
All right, 2 more. The Woman in White, which has different names, La Llorona, mainly the Woman in White. So what were you able to find out about her?
Yeah, Woman in White, this is an archetype that you find pretty much everywhere. And I'm glad you mentioned La Llorona, because absolutely one of those. But the Woman in White, the Woman in the Wisp, some people think maybe the Lady in the Lake might be, but probably not. But Woman in White just generally is the woman who was wronged in some way or lost her child. Oftentimes she lost her child because of that wrong. Maybe she was the victim of rape or incest, maybe unforced abortion, maybe a miscarriage, maybe a stillbirth, maybe SIDS, whatever it was. Maybe the child didn't look like the father and the father killed it because she was unfaithful or whatever it was. Anyway, the Woman in White is the spirit of that woman who's coming back looking for the child, and sometimes taking other children to replace that loss, but she never can, and she always sort of wails and moans and wanders, but a particular danger to children. So again, let's not forget that in up until 200 or 300 years ago, pretty much 4 out of every 5 kids died before age 4. Which is why they say 5,000 years ago the average age was 42. It's not because most people died by the time they were 42. Plenty of people lived to be 70, 80, 90, whatever it was. But 4 or 5 of them died before they were 2 years old. And probably 3 out of 4 of those died before they fully exited the womb, and a lot of the mothers died too. So La Llorona, harpies, witches, Lilith, they're all sort of the same kind of thing, just depicted in a different way. But the woman in white, you can picture the fog, you can figure mists off the sea, but basically associated with tragedy, typically in rural areas, not usually in the cities. Well, there's less fog and mist and, things like that in the cities. There's more light, there's more people. Oftentimes Caucasian, though. So you'd think that maybe the history might be the same as, from Slavic, or Celtic. Weeping seems to be more associated with non-Caucasian, but that's sort of like a small variation. But usually there's some sort of betrayal by someone who was important to them in life, and the loss of a child or children, or couldn't have children. And so just in a perpetual goal is to replace that loss.
And last one on the list is... again, just a movie monster. Maybe there's some significance to it, and that's what I got Jeff here for. Godzilla. Where are you able to find out about Godzilla?
I love Godzilla, but there isn't much. People have tried to associate Godzilla with about a million different things, but no, Godzilla was really just sort of an environmental response to the nuclear bombs dropped by the Americans. Some people say Godzilla is a representation of America, the big monster trying to kill us. I doubt that's the case, because some of the heroes were American in the original movie. I think it's the first environmentalist monster. Now, the interesting thing is in the new movies, the new, I don't know how many of them there will be, but Godzilla is referred to as one of the Titans. And that's very, well, there's 12 Titans, so you hear the number 12 a lot, and Godzilla's king of the Titans, so 12 plus 1. The Zodiac has 12 signs around the sun. Jesus had 12 apostles. King Arthur had 12 knights on the round table. We have 12 months. 12 is a special number. That's why our clocks go 1 to 12, 1 to 12, instead of 1 to 24. Because 12 is a special number plus the 1. That's why 13 is a special number to Mesoamerican cultures. It's bad luck in the West, but that's because Friday the 13th is the day the Templars were betrayed by King Philip and killed, or tried to be killed anyway. But in the new, it's Titans that live underground, and we saw Kong lived in the Hollow Earth. So more plugs for Garden of Doom. I have several shows on the Hollow Earth. Into the Great Wide Inner is one of the episodes with Andrew Goff, who is on the Discovery Channel and Gaia all the time, and another with Reverend Jim Williamson. I forget what we call it, but I've got a bunch of shows on Giants, but those two shows, which were close together, are very tied to the Hollow Earth. But it's very Lovecraftian, this new version of 12 giant monsters that ruled the world and are just waiting for their time to come up until something awakens up. And don't remember the Cthulhu in his mansion at R'lyeh, the Cthulhu gently dreams. Don't wake the Cthulhu, because someone woke the Cthulhu up, and when that happens, the Titans and their familiars go back to taking over the world again. 12 of them, just like the 12 families. There'll be one king, 13, the 13 kings, the 10 kingdoms, and then you go back to Lovecraft sort of being a racist. And does it all fall into the same kind of evangelical QAnon myth? Maybe not. Maybe there's enough borrowed. I don't know, but that's the new version of Godzilla. But that part's very interesting. The Titans of old, which are supposed to be the protectors of the Earth, protecting from what? Man, the ravenous beasts, which brings us back to Godzilla being sort of an environmentalist protection, a manifestation of Earth protecting itself.
All right, and that is the show, guys. We went through everything. Thank you to Mish for jumping on. Happy birthday to Mish again. And
I can't get him on Garden of Doom, but you can get him on. But big time Drew Yari can get him.
I'm not big time, trust me. But
big time Drew Yari.
What do we call this show? Do we call this Garden of Doom? Do we call this Garden of Yari? What do we call it?
How about Garden of Droom? Garden of Droom with Mish.
Garden of Droom with Mish. Yeah, we can do that.
Garden of Dream / Mish got caught in quicksand.
Mish got caught up in quicksand. All right, so yeah,
That's how Mish got caught in quicksand.
do we put this on Patreon or do we like make this free for everybody?
It's your show, buddy, but listen. I always want more people to hear about it. I always want more people to listen to Garden of Doom and be exposed to it. And if they find this interesting, hopefully they will. I've been trying to get Mish on Garden of Doom. I can't quite nail it down, so this is the closest. So that would be my request if you don't mind.
So you want me to send you the file after? Well, do you want me to edit first and then send you the file?
No, you can load it up as your show and just drop it under the Drew Yari show. I'm not saying I want it to be a Garden of Doom show. I just would want a wider audience than just the Patreons to be able to hear it, if possible.
Tell you what, let's share it. I'll put it on my show and I'll send you the file and you can put it on your show.
Okay, that's all right. I can do it as a bonus show. That sounds good.
All right, you heard it first, folks. This is a special episode of both my show and Jeff's show, Garden of Doom. And we got a cameo. We got a crossover that people have been waiting for with Mish.
Strangest Frank and Gus ever.
Strangest Frank and Gus ever. And Gus isn't even here.
There's so many names for this show.
I don't know. My middle name's Steven. What's your middle name?
Mark with a K.
So Steven, Mark, Frank, and Gus. Minus Gus.
Are we a boy band?
Yeah,
I like the Garden of Droom better.
Garden of Droom. There you go. Mish is the big brother. You be the big brother. Mish is he's the sensitive one.
Uncle.
Joey's the bad boy, and who would I be?
You're the adorable one.
Yeah, there you go. I'm the adorable. All right, guys. It was fun mixing up with everybody this morning. Hopefully everybody had a good morning and has a nice rest of this nice Sunday day. It's nice and cold. It's nice and cool here in San Antonio, so hopefully we'll enjoy it. But Jeff,
Emma,
thank you for coming on and making this show happen.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I could. I'm glad we finally got this done. I'm glad I gave you the homework assignment you gave me. But if you want to hear more, first of all, follow me on Twitter if you like, @IcarusFellMD. I'm happy to interact. I do a lot of shows on the PWC network. Too many, but they're mostly wrestling. So if you want to get a perspective with me and Jimmy T, sometimes Chris Am, sometimes Michael Jargo, sometimes Sexy Time Kevin Panetta. I also did commentary for Dollar Wrestling Club at their event Mischief Night. It's on YouTube. It's actually pretty funny. My wrestling podcast, Hammerlock Hangover with Steve Pena. You can find that on the Wrestling Soup Network and the PWC, PW Hustle, among other places. Garden of Doom. You just got a taste of the Garden of Doom. So I don't think I need to really tell you if you like this show or you found it interesting and you want to learn more things like this from people smarter than me, who made me sound smarter than I am or stupider than I used to be. I don't know, maybe, but at least more interesting. Check out Garden of Doom. You can find that on the Wrestling Soup Network and the PWC and the PW Hustle and the Hameen Media Group. Probably other places too that I can't think of. Garden Views is its sister show that's more topical. Legal science, a lot of space law. We did the law of cannabis. So very very much more grounded than Garden of Doom, but it's still me. There's some random interviews there too. All of the retired chief of New York City Police Department detectives who his team solved the Son of Sam, the original World Trade Center bombing, the Bell Parkway incident. Some high-profile assassinations, things like that. Got him on his 90th birthday party day. So there's also some interviews there, but yeah, a lot of stuff there. And of course, once every month to 2 months, I'm on Drew's show, either for this Patreon show that we do together, and every now and then I pop on his regular show when I can, though it conflicts with Dynamite and oftentimes doing the PWC skirmish, which is where we cover Dynamite, oftentimes after the show. So, but there's me. I mean, I don't know anyone who's listening to this who doesn't know where to find me, but in case you didn't, now you do. If you didn't know, now you know.
Oh, you didn't know? And you know where to find me. Like I said, I've had a busy week in podcasting. So Patreon, it's $5 a month. If you didn't already know, $5 a month. It's a good deal. I don't think you get charged fully $5. I think you get maybe charged like $3.80 something. So you don't have to pay too much. You get shows I do with Jeff here on Patreon, From Our Lips to Your Ears. I do a show with RJ, which is already up. We hadn't done one in a while, so we just did one just covering all the news going on in Marvel, and every now and then we talked a little about wrestling. I do a show with Ruben called Culture Attack, which we just did one not too long ago, so listen to that one. And you'll get the ad-free version of the regular show that you hear on Wednesday on there. No ads, just uncut, completely the way I intended it. And also, again, the new show, the Wednesday show, is already up, so listen to that. The Q&A show for the month of November. We just did that last night. It's already up. You're gonna want to listen to that. That one's a funny one. Like I was laughing so hard I was crying. Like it was that funny. I couldn't breathe. I do that with Justin, who's been a part of the family since July, I believe. Yeah, July. So you're gonna want to listen to that one, and then also this one I'm doing.
The hottest free agent acquisition since Cody Rhodes.
Got that right. And also this show I'm doing with Jeff, which is basically just a crossover show. It's a mix of my show and his show. That like I just mentioned, it's going to be on my network. It's also going to be on his network. So if you don't know where to find it, you know where to find it. And also, yeah, Mish was on the show. So the biggest cameo that no one expected is hey, Justin's a good guy, Goof. Come on, he's good. He's good people. I'm a pervert. So you should know that by now, Goof. But anyways, guys, great spending this Sunday with y'all. We'll see y'all on Wednesday for the regular show. And what else can I say? But have a good week, have a good weekend, and peace.
Just remember, 2 peace signs equals war. Stay evil, my friends.